That should be good. Let's hope that that is good. And I got the wrong camera on, but hey, welcome to Family Day. Let's just, oh, I do have the right camera on. How come that is like that? Oh, I see. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start in just a few minutes. Look at, I got two of me. How in the world? Always interesting. My ears are big enough without doing two of me. Ah, there we go. See, now it's a different camera. Oh no, it's the same camera. Hey, there we go. We got this one right. Hopefully there's only one microphone working today, because last week I know I had two microphones on at the beginning of this segment and it didn't work very well. So we'll see what happens this week. I think I only have one on. And do we have anyone? Oh, there's somebody watching. Hey, give me a shout out. Say hi. If I can figure out how to bring comments up, there we go. Leave me something in the comments and I'd be happy to give you a shout out. All right, we are going to start in just a minute from now. All right, there we go. So welcome to another episode of The Secrets of Safety Dog. On this, see now, why am I like that? On this, our long weekend, Family Day long weekend, which is awesome. Welcome. I'm dressed casual today and proud to be a Canadian. All right, so we're talking today about CVOR and conditional CVOR specifically. So let's get to this and let's see here if I can do this now. Yeah, there we go. Follow me on our social media stuff there. And why aren't I? Damn, I thought this was all working before I set this up today. Oh, I know why. It was all working, and there we go. All right, so we're working again, and we are talking about conditional CVORs today. This is going to be a rather short lesson because I'm going to break this down into pieces. And today, specifically, we are talking about the how do we get a conditional CVOR. And of course, getting a conditional CVOR is not a good thing, so it's nothing to be proud of, but it is, that's what we're going to be talking about, is the how today. So there are three ways. Last week I said there was two. I remembered another way. So there are three ways that I can think of to get a conditional CVOR. And the first one is you fail an audit. The second one is your overall violation rate goes above 70%. You'll go conditional there. We talked about that last week. Here's the third way that I'd forgotten about, associated companies. And this is where sometimes I understand what MTO is trying to do. What they're trying to do here is if I was to ruin one company with a CVOR number that I was running, I shouldn't be allowed to open a second company and start fresh with a new CVOR and a nice low score. Or I shouldn't be allowed to let my wife open a company up and start fresh with a low CVOR score. That's not fair. So that's why I believe the MTO has done it is, don't ruin one CVOR and then be allowed to open up another. The downside of that policy, I believe, is when you're a larger company and you purchase another company. You may have a really good CVOR. When you purchase another company, and if it has a conditional CVOR, often your CVOR, all the CVORs that are associated with you, will be rated the same as the lowest score or the lowest rating. And if that conditional company was up for sale partially because of their CVOR, now you have inherited that. And so that's the downside of that. So just be aware, if you are purchasing another company, you need to know what their CVOR score is, because you only have days to notify MTO that the ownership of that corporation has changed. And if the ownership has changed, you got to tell MTO as soon as they see it associated with another CVOR. All the CVOR ratings are going to be the same. So just be aware of that. The easy fix. We're just going to talk about one of the things to do today. And the easy fix, or the one that's easily fixed, if you went over the 70% and it's because your mileage was incorrect, that's relatively easily fixed. You do an update. Distance driven, overall violation rate is above 80%. Yes. So 80 they use this term, kilometric rate traveled, kilometric rate per month. And as you'll see here, this is right out of the CVOR safety manual. If you were to travel and at 25,000, this is your fleet travel, by the way, and it's Canadian kilometers. So all of Ontario and the rest of Canada. So your kilometers traveled per month at 25,000, you'd be allowed to lose 12 points. In this, I chose this example, was from the collision threshold. The points are not the same, but the idea is the same in the conviction table. Okay, the points aren't the same, but the idea is the same. 25,000 kilometers per month, you are allowed to lose 12 points, or half a point per month in those 24 months. That seems okay. So you would think that if you were 10 times bigger than that, you'd get to lose, or you'd get to have 10 times more points. But that is not the case. Here's 10 times more kilometers per month, and yet instead of being 120 points, as you can see here, it is only 36 points for the 24 months for your entire fleet. That's a really important distinction. And that equals 1.5 points for your entire fleet to lose per month, or else you're at 100% of that particular part of your threshold. So I just think that is really interesting, and I want you to understand that the larger you get, the fewer points per kilometers you are allowed to lose. And I'm going to take a guess and say, from a CVOR or the MTO point of view, the larger you get, the safer and the better policies and procedures they expect you to have. That's my guess as to why this is done this way. They expect a large fleet of 500 trucks to do a better job at managing all the risks than a 10 truck. So just wanted you to know about that. It's very interesting. And as I say, the numbers for convictions are different, but the idea is the exact same. So make sure your kilometers are correct for all CVOR vehicles. That's any vehicle that has a registered gross weight above 4,500 kg is a commercial motor vehicle, CMV. Therefore, it should be included in there. And don't forget your local trucks. Some of the trucking companies, they have IFTAs and they report their IFTA miles, but they forget about the trucks that don't go outside of Ontario sometimes. So make sure they're all captured and reported. That's legal. You need to do it. It needs to be accurate, accurate to within accurate to within 20%. To correct it with the MTO, you just need to file an update with them. So if your miles are low, your overall violation rate is artificially high. Let me repeat that. If your miles or kilometers are low, your overall violation rate, your OVR, is artificially high. So if you need to correct your kilometers traveled, and that will have an effect on your OVR. All right, so do an update. Also, I just wanted to point out that you can now renew your CVOR online. So all of you who are doing it, please renew your CVOR online. And that is the website. The website is also in the show notes down below. All right. Next week, what are we talking about? Next week, we're going to get into driver files, because if you failed an audit, so now we're going to be talking over the next 3 weeks about the 3 components that can cause you to fail an audit. And they, of course, are maintenance files, Q, R, and R, qualifications, records, and reporting, or driver files, and hours of service. So those are the 3 areas that can cause you to fail an audit. You have to have scored above 50% in each of those profiles and an overall score of 55%, I believe the number is, to pass your audit. All right, so that's passing. Those are the 3 areas. We're going to tackle the most difficult one, I think. When I'm working with clients, they have the most trouble, it seems like, with driver files. And then if I was to rank them, would be driver files, hours of service, and then preventative maintenance or maintenance files. They seem to do okay on, usually. But we'll talk about all 3. Next week, though, we're going to talk about driver files. All right? So join me next week, Mondays, 1 o'clock, and I will be back. Until then, Safety Dog is out.